Janelle's stuff, Carolyn. What do you think of Janelle?
A social worker searches for a family who is willing to adopt a newborn baby with special needs.
Whether or not he succeeds or not succeeds, whether or not he lives or dies, he's got to have a family who's going to be committed from day one.
But the family she approaches struggles with the prospect of enormous responsibility.
We talked about it and prayed about it a long time.
And when I saw him, I was like, I'm just immediately just crying already and still feeling like really unsure, not even feeling like, you know, this is right.
Next on Adoption Stories.
It's like God closes one door and opens another. That's right, today's Isaiah's first haircut. Good boy, thank you.
Saturdays are daddy days at the Hayes Brown household. And today is an extra special day for this North Carolina family. They're getting ready for a big celebration, and there's a lot to be done.
Hey, you did it.
After a year-long wait, parents Sharon and Tommy expect to receive a final decree of adoption for their youngest son, 13-month-old Isaiah.
When you're in the thick of that whole process, it's just you just really want it to be done. You just really want to exhale. You know the song. Oree, help your brother.
This is the third adoption for Tommy and Sharon. Isaiah's big brothers Oree, who is now 4, and Zion, who is 3, were also adopted at birth.
There you go. Oh, wait, cut Sharon's lock of hair first.
Most couples turn to adoption after years of infertility. But for Tommy and Sharon, adoption was a first choice. It was a dream even before they were married.
Oree.
When I was a teenager, I was reading in a magazine just about how there's this large number of African-American children and how there's just such a small pool of African-American families for them to go with. And I just decided that when I grew up, I would adopt children. And I always still wanted to have biological children, and I wanted to adopt. I wanted to experience both.
I didn't think about it till we adopted, but a lot of people just assumed that Sharon and I couldn't have biological children.
Someone has even asked me, aren't you able to have children? And I said, yes, I am, but that has nothing to do with my decision to adopt children. Did you remember to get the lock of hair for me from Isaiah?
There it is.
All right.
Long before the challenges of adoption became a reality, Tommy and Sharon were friends. They met in college through a mutual friend and initially kept things strictly platonic.
I never pictured that we would ever be together romantically. Never. He wasn't my type. I wasn't attracted to him in that way.
Sharon was really outgoing, really bubbly, friendly.
I thought he was like really funny, really easy to talk to. He was just a great guy.
She's always been there for me for difficult times, and I would borrow money from her. She would feed me when I had no food. She just acted just like a best friend would.
Then one summer he went away for an internship at a school, and during that summer we wrote to each other, and we just kind of got to know each other on a deeper level.
And then my grandfather passed away, William Oree, who was my best friend. I immediately just ran over Sharon's house. She just met me at the door and, took me in her arms, and that's when it started. It's like God closes one door and opens another.
The couple dated for only a month before Tommy asked Sharon to be his wife.
And I knew it was coming.
She said she knew it was coming.
I did know. I knew all day.
And so I just slipped on my ring and watched her gasp at how little it was.
It wasn't that little.
And put it on her finger and asked her to marry me.
They took each other's names and both became Hayes Brown. They initiated the phrase Hayes Brown, 2 people strong that would one day become a family tradition. It took 3 moves before Tommy and Sharon finally settled in Charlotte, North Carolina. During that time, Tommy joined the Big Brothers Association and developed a relationship with Dion.
He was 11 when we were first matched, and he's almost 17 now. I'm his mentor. I'm used to my computer work. Sometimes I wonder who's doing the mentoring, because sometimes he comes out with stuff I'm just like, I have no idea. But he is a wonderful guy. Our relationship is just built on love for each other.
I love him, man. He's like a real brother. I mean, he's like a father, too. I mean, he's living a great life. A lot of friends, family, and everything. I admire that. That's my role model, my hero.
This is all from May 21st to the end of May?
Yes.
Good job.
That is...
Shortly after the wedding, Tommy became a team manager at an insurance company. Once all was stable on both the work and the home fronts, Tommy and Sharon felt they were ready to start having children.
We were kind of thinking, well, we'll go ahead and we'll start the process of adoption, and if we get pregnant in the process, you know, maybe that'll happen. And it never was important to us which came first.
Their search for an adoption agency led them to another choice for black children, where they heard about Ruth Amerson, a dedicated social worker who founded North Carolina's first black adoption agency. Initially, the couple's goals and the goals of the agency seemed perfectly in sync. But after their first meeting, both parties had second thoughts.
Because he does have...
We asked, well, how did you learn about us? Tommy says, we found you on the internet. And I says, oh my God, it's one of those internet families.
Honestly, my first impression of Ruth was, okay, I don't think this is gonna work.
You know, you can do all kinds of things. You can change the whole wide world.
Motivated by the surplus of African-American children who languish in the foster care system, Ruth Amerson opened the adoption agency, Another Choice for Black Children, in 1995.
I was a social worker in a public agency, and social workers were saying they can't find families to adopt black children, that black children were unadoptable. In North Carolina, it is estimated that there are about 5,000 children in foster care. And African-American children make up about 45 to 50% of those children. Well, across the state, we make up less than 12% of the population. I says, no, we can do something about this. You know, you can do all kinds of things. You can change the whole wide world. But I wonder what they would do if a new child come in there with some major difficulties, because Denzel...
But the couple's introduction to Ruth took them by surprise.
And she was just very loud and energetic like she normally is. But when you first see it, you know, you're kind of like taken aback. Like, you know, who is this woman?
We are a nonprofit, meaning we are very poor. So we didn't have all that stuff you read, like, send me some reading material. I said, yeah, right. You know, so it was hard to convince them that we were legitimate agents, that we were licensed through the state of North Carolina, and that we do have some successes.
And then she asked what type of children we wanted to adopt, and Sharon and I said, an infant. And then she just brushed us off. She said, we don't do infants, we don't do infants.
Everybody wants a baby. The whole country is all baby craze. That's when we opened the agency, we said we wanted to work with the children who wait the longest, you know, school-age children.
It appears that they have during research.
The couple was eventually won over by Ruth's commitment and energy. They joined the mandatory 10-week adoption class, hoping they would beat the odds and find an infant who needed a home.
And our first task, to support the attachment the children have to their birth families.
Adoption is going to change your life forever. And during that period of time, you get to know more about yourself, and you learn a whole lot about children, their losses, and things to expect in the future.
During the classes, Tommy discovered that he had a negative opinion of birth parents, but that changed very quickly.
I used to always think, oh, they're drug addicts, the mothers just don't care, or it's just not convenient for their family lives. You know, not true at all. They kind of take you through that process and the incredible amount of love and unselfishness it takes to give your child up for adoption.
After completing the 10-week class, home visits, criminal background checks, and fingerprinting, the Hayes Browns were ready to adopt. They expected a long wait for an infant, but only a few months later, Ruth called with news that would change their lives.
And she said, I have a baby boy for you. He's less than a month old, and he's in foster care right now with the foster family, and he's just ready to be yours.
But they weren't prepared for the deep and instant feeling of love when they first laid their eyes on their little boy.
As soon as we looked at him, Oree's face just lit up. It was just amazing.
I used to dream about Oree before he came. I used to I just really wanted to know what he looked like. So I would just dream about him, you know. There wasn't a face there. Now I'm so glad to have that face.
The foster mom was really emotional. She was really emotional. And I know how difficult that must have been. What's that?
Oree.
They'd made up a book of pictures of his early days and had written him a poem, a letter. And that, of course, just priceless to us. And for him, I'm sure.
The Hayes Browns took the baby into their hearts and home and instantly became 3 strong. They named him Oree after Tommy's grandfather and gave him the middle name Believe.
Our new resolve to really just believe in the things that we can do, Oree is a manifestation of that.
If they had stayed with their original plan, the next step for Sharon and Tommy would be to have a biological child. But fate and Ruth stepped in first.
Hi, Sharon.
It just took my breath away. It was so gorgeous.
Less than a year after adopting their first son, Oree, Tommy and Sharon Hayes Brown got another call from Ruth. She told them a baby boy was available for adoption, but he was premature and still in the hospital with special needs.
He had bradycardia, where his heart rate would drop when he's feeding him. Tommy, said, well, Sharon, is this something that you really want to do? Because you're going to be the primary caregiver. You're going to be here with this newborn baby and with Oree. He was 2 months old when we met him. They brought us back into the nurse's station, and they just wheeled Zion out, and it just took my breath away. It was so gorgeous.
Just again, our faith just took over, and we prayed about it. It was the right thing to do. Absolutely. I can't imagine our family without Zion. As much as he wears us out.
Zion came home and within weeks was thriving.
The Hayes Browns got in there and they believe in natural stuff. They vegetarians. They're the kind of families I stay away from, because I'm a meat eater. So, but they got in there and just watched his diet and very attentive to all his doctor's appointments. And this child just soared in that home. I think it's unbelievable that you can see a child that really looked like the odds were against him. And then you see what love, what commitment, what patience. When you can see what happens, then you see kids soar. And Zion is one of those children.
We named him Zubari, which is Swahili for strong. And he's the strongest little boy I know.
Strong.
The Hayes Brown family was now 4 strong. Oree and Zion kept Sharon hopping, while Tommy worked full-time and continued to be a big brother to Dion.
When I told him we were having children, he wasn't really happy. And I would ask him after each one, "What's wrong, guy? What's wrong?" And he would just say, "I just think after this one, you're not going to have time for me, Which has never been the case.
I really enjoyed it because I got to, take part in the responsibility. I got to see a little baby grow up. I got to help raise him. And he loves me. Yeah, that's one of the best parts about it. And Zion loves me just as much as Oree does. So, hey, that's good.
Give me a hug, too. Give me a hug. Can you give me a hug? Oh, yeah.
It was a busy time for the growing family, so when they got another call from Ruth asking if they would foster a baby girl, they had mixed feelings.
I never wanted to be a foster father, and heaven bless those people who can foster. Sharon really wanted to do this, not only for Ruth, but for the little girl, and kind of as a payback, because the people that fostered our son.
But as a foster mother, Sharon had to be prepared for the heartache that would come when the little girl left for her permanent family.
So it was just really, really challenging for me. But I just decided that I just have to, give it all I had. I said, who knows, she might end up being here permanently. You just never know with foster care.
The baby girl came to live with the Hayes Browns, but her stay was short. Only 3 weeks later, she was adopted and went to live with her new family.
All day long I said, oh, this isn't as hard as I thought it was going to be. I was kind of, our stuff together and trying to say, this is going to be a good thing, because it was a lot of work trying to really talk myself into it, but when she left, it was very hard. It was hard.
So I think it did clue me in a little bit to just a tiny fraction of a bit of what maybe a birth parent goes through.
Tommy and Sharon got a taste of what it was like to juggle 3 kids and decided to call it quits at 2. Their dreams of a biological baby were just not meant to be.
As time wore on, it became less important to me to give birth, and I realized that really the most important thing was that I just get to mother.
Hi. Hi, Tommy. This is Ruth.
But Ruth had other plans. She knew of another infant boy who needed a loving home.
I got some great news for you and Sharon.
I was just like, okay, wow, this is just amazing. You go from her even herself saying, we don't get a lot of babies, to now this is baby number 3.
We've claimed our children from the very beginning and just have faith that things will work out.
I see you.
There is still much to be done to get ready for the big family celebration that will permanently recognize the adoption of the Hayes Browns' 3rd son, Isaiah.
I think we need to get some hamburgers and hot dogs, of course.
It's a time of great anticipation and reflection. More than a year ago, Tommy and Sharon were faced with the decision of adopting an infant born prematurely. He had to stay in intensive care until he was strong enough to be released.
And I'm just still feeling like really unsure, not even feeling like, this is right, because we were still so overwhelmed with just the 2 of them. And we just kind of discussed it over dinner and talked to Ruth, and she said, you can go tonight to go and meet him.
The couple arranged for a sitter to stay with Oree and Zion while they went to the hospital.
They claimed that child from day 1. They called me. They says, honey, we've been to the hospital all night. We've been visiting our son.
He was just beautiful, just kind of just melded right in your arms when you held him. And we were just like, this is it. We're ready to take him home.
Unfortunately, Isaiah wasn't ready to leave. He needed to remain in ICU for 2 weeks until he gained weight and his temperature stabilized.
Then the fun began, because we had a child in the hospital now. And I would do the 6 a.m. feeding, and I would leave work at noon, spend my lunch hour running down to the hospital, feed him, go back to work. Then I would do the 6 o'clock feeding, and then come on home, and then me and Sharon would switch off. She would stay there till midnight, and then she would come home, and we'd start the day again the next morning.
Isaiah was doing well, but there were other concerns. The birth mother had yet to terminate her parental rights and still had the option of visiting her baby.
So there was always kind of are we going to bump into her while we were up there?
There was one time I think they said, oh, she just left. Like the trail was fresh, and we had just missed her, and I know that was very scary for me.
The mandatory 21-day waiting period finally passed, and Isaiah's birth mother waived her parental rights. But the Hayes Browns still had many months to wait before the adoption could be finalized.
Even after an adoption is final, anyone could come back at any time and say, I want to contest this.
You hear all these horror stories about, birth parents coming back or a grandmother.
Tommy, why are these buns all crushed?
I don't know.
Oh, they came like that? Anything can happen. We've claimed our children from the very beginning and just have faith that things will work out the way they're supposed to work out.
Hey, Oree! Hey, give me some. I hope y'all got regular food for regular people.
But that's all that's on the grill right now is regular food. We have steaks and chicken and
Regular
hot dogs
food.
and hamburgers.
I didn't get this size eating veggies. It's a work.
We're going to help you maintain.
It's a gorgeous North Carolina afternoon, and the time has finally come for the Hayes Browns to gather together and honor the newest addition to their family.
We want to present something to the Hayes Browns. It's been a long haul, but I came by today to present to you guys your final decree of adoption for Isaiah Jasani Hayes Brown. Yay!
you. I was so relieved. You just finally say, wow, you know, it's done. That part, that chapter, that book is closed, you know, and we can just move on, you know. I was very grateful.
The said minor is declared adopted for life by the petitioners, and that said child shall henceforth be known by the name Isaiah Jasani Hayes Brown.
And just the power of the words, you know, he's adopted for life. This is very powerful.
And hereby known as Isaiah Jasani Hayes Brown. That's incredible.
It's been an incredible journey, and we are so excited about being part of your family. Thank you again. We love you guys.
Ruth has been a powerful force in the lives of this family. But it turns out that she's not the only force at work.
After Zion, I think we were pretty much it. And after Isaiah, we were really thinking we were through. But then, you know, they get out of that little baby stage, and Ruth hadn't called, so.
We're pregnant now and expecting a baby in a few months. It just kind of worked out where we just, you know, just said, okay, well, we're gonna have the biological child last.
Hayes Brown, 6 strong.
Everybody want to belong to somebody. Everybody want to have roots. There are far too many children out there that need families. They need some connections.
Ruth is an angel, a loud angel, but she is an angel. You know, she's helped hundreds of children find their way home.